All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Chris Vignoni, PMBA. Today is Tuesday, May 7th, 2019. Any information on this video is as of that date. Okay, first of all, during the video, after the video, if you have any questions or any information, we always offer a free initial analysis. My email address will be at the bottom in the comments, okay, just in general. So if you have any questions regarding this video or any questions, sales tax, email at the bottom, click on that, shoot me the question. So, all right, today we're going to talk about drop shipments. We're going to talk about drop shipments, sales tax, and how Wayfair has affected drop shipments, okay, and worrying about sales tax. So, real quick, let me give you a drop shipment 101 kind of rundown on how drop shipments work. Maybe you've heard of the term, maybe you're partially familiar, maybe you think you're familiar. Here's a quick rundown. Drop shipments involves a transaction between three different parties, okay, the consumer, the retailer, and the supplier, okay? Consumer is the company buying the product, ultimately consumer, company, whatever it may be. The retailer is the company that initiated the sale with the consumer. However, in the case of a drop shipment, the retailer does not own the inventory. The retailer has to go get the inventory from the supplier, and then the supplier ships the item to the consumer, okay? So that is a drop shipment. Consumer, retailer, supplier, item purchased by the consumer through the retailer, but ultimately shipped by the supplier to the consumer. Okay, so lots of sales tax questions when things happen. Today we're going to really focus on the sales tax questions around the supplier. Okay, when we think about this transaction, we think about the first thing is, all right, who has nexus where, who has to collect sales tax? Well, obviously the retailer is going to have to worry about their relationship with the consumer and collect sales tax based on that. But a big question always is that what does the supplier do? Okay, what does the supplier have to worry about? What if they're shipping to a state where the retailer has or doesn't have nexus? So regarding the supplier, the only thing the supplier needs to worry about really is where they have nexus, okay, not necessarily where the retailer has nexus. All right, so as you're acting as the supplier, you're acting as the drop shipper, you're concerned is where do you have nexus? All right, number one, so when we look at the supplier, okay, and we look about where they have nexus, obviously they have to be worried about two things. So if they're shipping an item to a state where the supplier has nexus, they have to worry about one of two things, either charging the retailer sales tax or getting a resale certificate or exemption certificate from the retailer in order not to charge them sales tax. Those are two important issues that the supplier always needs to worry about. Now the question is that what if the retailer doesn't do business in the states that the drop shipper is shipping items to? Okay, they can't issue them a certificate. Is that right? Do they have to charge them sales tax? So this is the key question we want to talk about today. So in that situation, okay, supplier shipping an item to a state where the retailer does not have nexus, the retailer generally has a couple different options. Option number one is they can issue them a certificate, okay, or they could pay sales tax on the transaction. The sales tax is generally paid on the wholesale rate. It could be the wholesale rate plus 10%, whatever it may be. But ultimately that becomes a cost to the retailer. So even if the retailer has to charge sales tax on the other end, they don't want to pay sales tax. So the retailer wants to issue a resale certificate whenever they can. One of the things that many people get wrong, they don't realize, is that the retailer doesn't necessarily have to be registered in all the states to be able to issue a resale certificate. Okay, currently 35 states allow a retailer who doesn't have nexus in their state to either issue a resale certificate or to issue some other form of proof, okay, that they are a retailer and buying its sale for reseller. They could issue that to the supplier in order to do that. It could be their state home tax ID number, it could be their FEIN, all different types of things. So there's 35 states. So number one, if you're a retailer and you've been paying sales tax on drop shipments because you think that you weren't able to charge sales tax on it, okay, give us a call. Let's talk about that. 35 states, you have an option not to pay sales tax on it. However, there are about 10 or 11 what we call deadly states. Okay, these states include Connecticut, DC, Louisiana, Illinois, Florida, Maryland, and a few other states. These states generally do not allow retailers that are not registered in their state to charge sales, to issue a resale certificate without being registered in the state. There's a few workarounds, but for the most part, that's it. So if you're a retailer and you're listening to this, give us a call if there's some confusion on what you can issue and not. If you're a supplier, those are the rules, okay? You need to get that certificate. If you want more understanding about that, again, email us below. We can talk about that more. So that's drop shipments in 5 minutes. I could have spent 2 hours on it, lots of things to talk about, lots of ins and outs, but just to understand I want to really focus on the supplier. So the supplier either has to charge sales tax in one of these 7 states or get a resale certificate or some type of form of proof of wholesale from the other 10 states, okay, from the 35 states, or collect in 10 states. Now, how does Wayfair impact drop shipment? Well, it impacts it in a big way. So Wayfair basically now, wholesalers were previously the supplier, let's keep it the name supplier. The supplier previously didn't have to collect sales tax in any state where it didn't have physical presence. So although it had to comply with drop shipment rules, they weren't too difficult. If you had 7, 8, 9 locations, collect certificates when shipments were going to that state, and the other state you didn't have to collect sales tax. Now with Wayfair, is the big question is, where do we have to collect sales tax from a supplier? This gets complicated. Unfortunately, when we look at that, what we have to look at for a wholesaler in particular, a supplier that generally doesn't collect sales tax and only does wholesale transactions, is which states have included wholesale transactions in a definition of their threshold. Some states have come out and clearly said that wholesale transactions are included in their definition of economic nexus for Wayfair. Other states have come out and said that it's definitely not included. Some included, some not included. What to do? So number one, as suppliers now, as wholesalers regarding drop shipments, you really have to have a really good understanding of where you have nexus now in the economic nexus world. Again, previously only physical presence, now economic presence, okay? And even if you are only a wholesaler, you still create economic presence, and you're still obligated now to register and collect the exemption certificates or the proof for these drop shipments. So that's really the biggest difference in this world. There are a couple states real quick, Illinois, Minnesota, the 2 that we've tracked so far, as well as several other states, that have said even if you're only a wholesale business, you do not need to register under Wayfair, do not need to worry about wholesale certificates. But there's only been a few that have come out and said if you're 100% wholesale, you don't have to worry about certificates, don't have to worry about registering. Many states have used definitions such as gross receipts, gross sales, gross revenue, and have left the door open where many wholesalers now need to worry about, do I need to register, do I need to collect exemption certificates, and so on and so forth. So that's really where the big impact is. So for suppliers, okay, in drop shipment transactions, if you haven't done an economic nexus evaluation, you need to do one, because you potentially have filing requirements, maybe 0 sales tax returns, but you still have filing requirements in these drop shipment states. And if you're in one of these states that don't allow retailers that do not have not registered in the state to give a sales tax exemption certificate, you can actually now have sales tax collection remitting requirements to do that. So, suppliers in the drop shipment world, if you haven't done the analysis, do it today. If you have questions, again, email below, okay? Give us a call. We'll talk to you about it. But that's really a high level, and I'm sorry the video went a little bit longer than I normally wanted it to, but that was a lot of information. What I want you to remember is if you're a supplier as part of the drop shipper and you haven't done an economic nexus evaluation report, do one now. It could have a major impact on your business and what you have to charge and not charge and collect exemption certificates going forward. Again, today is Tuesday, May 7th, 2019, and all the information of the video is of that date. Again, always great to talk to everyone. Thanks a lot. Bye.